In one of the more weird and confusing stories from the transfer portal window last winter, Florida State fans finally get some clarity on the Rodney Hill situation. And it should serve as a lesson and even a warning to younger players and even high school prospects. Now we'll get into the backstory and what this quite represents about the current state of college football, but real quick, if you're a diehard Noles fan, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me. We cover recruiting, college alignment stuff, crazy portal stories like this one, so it's definitely where you want to be, and we'd love for you to stick around. Now, Rodney Hill, once a promising young running back for Florida State, had the praises of a lot of Florida State fans, including myself. I actually thought Hill would eventually be a solid part of this offense. Unfortunately, he decided to hit the transfer portal last December, or at least it seemed. On the outside, it just looked like an NIL ploy maybe, or maybe he was feeling the crowded running back room there in Tallahassee, so it wasn't all that surprising. But his departure was a little messy to say the least. He transferred to FAMU, then as a preferred walk-on to Miami, then back to FAMU before finally settling at Arkansas. So a dramatic sequence there to say the least. But Rodney was recently interviewed and shed some light on this situation that at least helped make some sense of it, but also a little scary. His parents were sort of in charge of his affairs at the time, his money and things like that, which is already a red flag to me, honestly. But then they hired a bad agent for him. Now, we know Hill's camp and Florida State were in talks regarding NIL at the time, and reportedly he was just asking for just crazy amounts of money for a player in his position. But I guess while this was going on, his agent was texting other schools pretending to be him, and by the time that got back around to Mike Norvell and his coaching staff, he pretty much had to leave anyways. He stressed that he wasn't trying to leave Florida State and that he really didn't want to leave, but once everything happened, he really didn't have a choice, and the portal was closing up, so he went next door to FAMU to kind of figure things out and find a new spot. Now, assuming this whole story is true, you really hate that for the kid. And you also wonder why it still couldn't be resolved in some way, but, who knows what all was said and done. The situation may have just been too far gone at that point and maybe just not worth resolving for either side. Now, especially if you're an old school fan, this story probably embodies everything you hate, right? Agents, NIL money, social media drama, the transfer portal. And after a story like this, I'd say that's pretty valid. It was inevitable that this kind of thing would happen when all these new changes started getting brought into the sport. That's the dangerous part of a lot of these things, and that's why they were met with such pushback from, purist college football fans. I think this definitely symbolizes some flaws in the system and raises some concerns for not only the current state, but also the future of college football. This was a kid who, he hadn't arrived yet necessarily, but he was on a path to a promising career at Florida State. Now, maybe he would have got buried on the depth chart and ended up transferring anyways. He was definitely no Dalvin Cook, but he absolutely deserved to make that sort of conclusion and decision on his own, rather than having shady dealings going on behind his back with bad representation. This definitely altered his career in a negative way. Florida State has had each of their last starting running backs sent to the NFL. Trey Benson was the second running back taken last April. Now, I'm not saying he was as good as those guys, and I'm not saying that he still can't show out at Arkansas and still take it to the next level, but it's absolutely a disservice for him for it to all go down this way. Now, luckily, it sounds like he has better representation now, signing with Just Win Management, which is a pretty well-known group, and he's taking control of his own matters now, which I think is always the best thing. He wants other kids to learn from this situation and even recommends kids waiting to get an agent, which I think is also a good idea. Again, with everything that's been infused to college football over these last few years, this kind of thing was just guaranteed to happen. But you definitely hate that it went down this way for Rodney, you hate it for Florida State, and really just everyone involved. You hope that he learned from it, which it seems like he has, but you also hope that other young players and recruits see this and learn from it. And you really hope not to see too much more of this kind of thing happening and further tainting the sport we all love. But I don't know. Definitely let me know your thoughts on all this down in the comments. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, an unfortunate story here, assuming it's all true. It definitely helped me make some sense of that whole thing, and hopefully it did for you guys too. If you enjoyed the video or you just enjoy all Florida State content in general, definitely drop a like and consider subscribing. It really helps us out a ton, and we hope to catch you guys on the next one. Go Noles.